What we saw when we were working in the field ourselves is that often problems arose that could have been prevented.
Right.
The whole mental load of doing the whole workflow in one thing is huge. You need a lot of preparation, you need a lot of testing. It's a fence that we put in place to just not get you into the situation at the first place. We just don't allow you to do things that will bite you down the road. You're shifting terabytes, and you can easily qualify drives in how much terabytes can I move, but if I know that a drive is 1 terabyte per hour slower, I immediately know the impact of that drive.
Welcome to Workflow Kitchen. Today we're looking at faster and safer workflows with Hedge, from first copy to final archive. So let's get cooking. Hi there, how you doing? My name is Martin from Iodyne. We're here with another episode of Workflow Kitchen. Another very special friend of Iodyne is Paul from Hedge. Hey Paul, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks for having me.
How's your show been so far? Pretty good?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah?
It's nice.
It's nice. It's been a good show, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I like it. Let's get a little overview of Hedge, because obviously since Hedge started, back when it was the Hedge software, the sort of single, you've expanded into an entire kind of catalog. Give us a little overview of all of the tools that Hedge now has under its umbrella.
The idea of Hedge is that it's a Dutch saying, you throw something over the hedge, is here you go, someone else's problem. So that's what our backup software does.
Right.
And
like that.
Offshoot is a offshoot of that idea, if you will. Then you need to do camera reports. You do that with full CAD. You need to do transcoding sometimes. That's edit ready. Sometimes if you're DAT, you need to do scopes. So we have scope box for that, software scopes instead of needing hardware scopes. And then you typically move out of production into post. And there you either use Mimiq, which is, if you're an Avid editor, allows you to do collaborative editing in Media Composer. Or you use PostLab, which is for the whole creative team. It allows you to do gives you a base of operation for Final Cut Pro, Premiere, all the Adobe apps, Pro Tools, Lightroom Classic. So you have everything in one place, and you don't have to dabble with versions, etc. Like this is the latest one. You can see the revisions made.
That's really
and then at the end of the whole thing is LTO, typically. If you're into LTO, then you need a separate app for that. That's Canister.
That's amazing. So you've really kind of actually broken down the entire workflow. Into these sort of not only sort of digestible steps, but also it seems like you've very deliberately kind of almost kept these separate,
Very much so.
which strikes me that you guys aren't just kind of software engineers, you actually have a real understanding of the job that needs to be done at each of these stages.
My ideal production back in the day was I just want to sit the whole day on a chair and drink coffee or eat pizza and just have...
It sounds good. Honestly, it's a hell of a dream.
Well, it means I'm in control of the job I'm doing. It means that I removed all the risk or eliminated all the insecurities that you might have, everything that might come up. You can definitely do that with software, so that's what we try to do, and we kept at that idea by separating our apps, because if you're doing backups, you don't want to think about archiving. You don't want to also have to think about the transcoding per se. The whole mental load of doing the whole workflow in one thing is huge. You need a lot of preparation, you need a lot of testing, while it's much easier if you break it down into pieces and decide per production, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but I don't need LTO for this, or I don't need the transcoding because we're shooting ProRes. And that makes, if you break it up in pieces, it also makes software much more affordable. Because you can grow into it instead of having to buy this huge package that's $800 a year.
You then in that respect, you've really created something that actually allows the end user to kind of actually grow through your software. You know, if they're kind of starting out doing one job and then they add all these other kind of strings to their bow.
Like you grow into your career.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about Mimiq, because obviously with the Pro data, we've been working with you on that. Yeah, how did that sort of come about in the software in general, but we can kind of get into the Mimiq side of stuff as well.
Well, what we saw when we were working in the field ourselves is that often problems arose that could have been prevented. And people get into trouble when they start mixing them. For the end user, that's the main benefit, but the actual benefit is by forcing that media management to have in place, you will not run into trouble with other editors that suddenly didn't use Mimiq and then imported their media in a different media management system that your media management system won't understand. So it's a fence that we put in place to just not get you into the situation at the first place. And that's what we do with backups as well. We just don't allow you to do things that will bite you down the road.
It's almost this sort of functional kind of protective layer that you're putting in, because I think when I started building some of these Mimiq workflows, I was expecting a little bit more needed to happen, but it just sort of seamlessly works in the background. I was like, oh, okay. And I was kind of straight away, I was like, okay, I guess we're done.
Yeah.
type thing. You have to have an understanding of the actual workflow. It's no good just kind of creating this and going, oh, we're going to put this out. You've had to start with this integral understanding of M&E workflow in order to know where the problems are in order to eradicate them. So you kind of got to get it wrong so that you guys can get it right. I worked as a DIT for many years, and again, I go back to what was offshoot. It was called Hedge back then, and the simplicity. It was interesting because Hedge always provides this simplicity in the way to operate it, but actually what it was doing under the hood, I knew was very complex, and it was delivering this very kind of these very complex functions and kind of outputs to me. But what I liked again was while I was on set, it was easy to operate. It was easy above all to get that feedback of what actually was happening within the software. Take, for example, let's look at, say, a cinema workflow. These are, very, very complicated, kind of very branched workflows, but they're all predicated on kind of predictability, when something can move to the next step, and then when it can branch off, and then that expectation that is based on that from several people and components within that workflow. Peak performance doesn't seem to sit into that very well for me, and because what something can go up to it seems to not really be relevant. I've got to be honest in this space. I think what is more relevant is what the sustained speed I can get out of something. I've used this analogy before, which is it doesn't really matter how fast I could run when I was 21. It's about how fast I can run now and how long I can maintain that speed. So in that respect, kind of talking about that truth, sort of tell me how you think we should evolve a little bit from where we are now to kind of really where we need to be to gain that kind of trust and expectation back in our workflow.
Well, we see this, of course, daily in offshoots and in our customer support. 90% of the customer support requests we get in are from people that have a problem with their storage performing less than expected. And sometimes those expectations are not realistic. Sometimes those expectations were realistic, but something changed and they cannot find what the cause
is. Component, right?
Yeah. So everybody has run into the situation that they've had a drive and that it suddenly performs slower, or someone gives them a drive, like a producer, hey, can you make a copy on this drive as well? Right. But that drive's a lot slower than the other backups you're making. And suddenly you don't know how much longer that is. And we think that's because a lot of manufacturers talk about peak speed, megabytes per second.
Right.
But also the problem is that megabytes per second don't relate to our daily lives.
Doesn't have a place in video because I'm not.
It's
I'm
an
not
IT
really doing minutes
metric.
or seconds. I'm doing hours. Is what I'm doing.
And you're shifting terabytes.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about terabytes per hour? And you can easily qualify drives in how much terabytes can I move? How many terabytes do I need to move today? Right. Which drives do I need? And if I then get a slower drive, if that drive is 200 megabytes per second slower, I need to start doing a calculation on how much longer it's going to take. But if I know that a drive is 1 terabyte per hour slower, I immediately know the impact of that drive, and I can, for instance, tell a producer not a great idea if we're going to use this drive because that's this much overtime, and that gets everybody on the same page much easier.
It's that exponential knock-on effect that it has down the workflow. I've said this before, actually. I think I've said it to you. Is when something says 25 minutes, I expect to come back and for it to be done in 25 minutes, not to come back and say it's got another 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That 15 minutes then delays me getting that copy done, which delays the next copy, which is also going to add another 15 minutes, which means that drive doesn't leave till the next morning, which means I don't get it back and then for another following morning because it missed the DI out or whatever it is. So it has this very kind of increasing exponential effect throughout the entire workflow, which to your point, does nothing but cost you money down the line. So if I can have that predictability and I can see that through your software, then I know it's going to be 25 minutes, it's 25 minutes.
This is where it gets hard, because for instance, the ProData is a super fast drive and has amazing performance. People say, oh, I don't need this super fast drive because my card only does this amount.
Right.
But if you do get that fast drive, that allows you to do 5 card offloads at the same time.
Absolutely.
And you might say, I don't have 5 cameras, but that's not the problem. You can do more card swaps.
Right.
And yes, those card cost money, but it does save you a lot of time down the line. And we need to get people thinking about, I have this many data, and that needs to go there, then there, then there, there, and this is the time tax on that.
So we're really kind of talking about workflow scheduling kind of thing. It's this mathematics that we use. To your point, okay, this card may only read off at this time, so I don't need to go faster than that. But then have you calculated, okay, take how long that takes to offload, how quickly are you filling that card? Because now if the second card's coming in before you finish that one, of the 2 copies, now you've got a discrepancy in the workflow. So it's, I think maybe we kind of almost oversimplify some of it sometimes. That feedback that we're talking about, I really think it's kind of based off of what we're doing together now, which is kind of looking at the hardware, looking at the software, and actually getting that better understanding, and the collaboration that obviously we've been working on, I think is really going to change things moving forward, and it's going to gain that trust, that predictability back in the workflow. But we got to work together to do that, so I'm glad we are. I'm really excited the work that we're doing together, and I think I'm also more excited. I'm going to talk a little bit about Pro Mini, because obviously that's our latest awesome little drive there. I'm really excited about attaching those to cameras and doing, because it's not inboard media, is it? That's your CF Expresses and your SDs and your kind of other various card mags. This would kind of be onboard, is what it would be, onboard media. But the real advantage of that is now you've got a camera media that can read off incredibly fast.
What I hear a lot of people saying in the industry, especially if you walk around here at a show, then that's not for me, or I'm not that high end. But you actually are. 99% of the workflows are identical. It's the 1% that's different, and from the outside it looks like a completely different workflow. But under the hood, it's the same thing. And the needs of a wedding photographer, or sports, or I'm doing an after movie for a music festival, that turnaround time, it has the same impact as I need encryption on a drive because we are a high-end Hollywood movie.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you one more question, because we ask everybody. Because you're doing all this stuff, you're doing Mimiq, canister, edit ready, offshoot. How are you sleeping? Are you sleeping these days at all, or is this kind of just a bit of an afterthought? Get some Z's in.
We're Dutch, right? So, and I think it's ingrained in our society that we work on something interesting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do need to have a balance there. So we by law we have vacation. Quite a lot of PTO, and we have vacation money actually and stuff like that. We have summer holidays. So when we started the company, we said we're not going to work on weekends. We're not going to work evenings if we can do that. Sometimes time zone wise that's just not doable. Sure. But for instance, back in the day, I used to do meetings in my evenings because we're in Europe with the West Coast all the time. We stopped doing that, and we just start drip feeding that, so we at least get some sleep. Yeah, and we actually have a pretty good life balance in the company. So
I like that. Yeah. That's good. You've got to prioritize that.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been fun being here at the show. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Paul from Hedge, yay. Brilliant. And we'll see you on the next episode of Workflow Kitchen. This is iodyne Workflow Kitchen, where media professionals and technologists break down real-world workflows and explore smarter, faster ways to create. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe to catch the next episode.